Hey everyone, Alpha Eagle here again. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and may God bless you all. Film is a visual medium. Part of an actor's qualifications is how they look. For example, if an actor is going to play a superhero, they have to look heroic. That's why so many actors who play superheroes get in shape before the movie starts filming. Part of this is also an actor's race and gender. For example, you wouldn't hire an Asian woman to play a Viking warrior because it wouldn't be logical and wouldn't make any sense. Suspension of disbelief only goes so far. But for some reason, in recent years, left-wing Hollywood has lost their minds and have thrown logic and accuracy out the window, and they claim that any race and any gender can play any role. Or, more accurately, any role that was originally a white person. They never race swap non-white roles these days. Let's take a look at the description of these characters and see how accurate Hollywood's casting is. In the Snow White fairy tale, Snow White's mother says, "How I wish I had a daughter that had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony." How accurate is Hollywood's casting choice? Another example is Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Anderson described Ariel as having a slender form with the loveliest violet eyes and marble white skin. How accurate is Hollywood's casting? Another example is Heimdall from the Thor movies. He is called the Shining God and is the whitest skinned of the gods. How accurate is Hollywood's casting? So it's clear that in these modern times, Hollywood doesn't care about the race or even gender of actors, even though, as I said, film is a visual media, and the look of an actor and believability is supposedly important. Yet for some reason in left-wing Hollywood, race is very important to them when it comes to jobs behind the camera, where race really doesn't matter at all. That's why director Nia DaCosta was hired to direct The Marvels as well as her previous film Candyman, because of her race and gender. This is racial discrimination. All non-black male directors were purposely excluded from directing The Marvels and Candyman simply because of their race and gender, when race and gender is irrelevant to the job of directing. I talked about this recently with Little Movie Perp and his friends. Let's hear what they had to say.
How many black directors were there? How many didn't like the first black woman director got #1 just like 2 years ago, #1 in the box office?
Little Movie Perp is referring to the Marvel's director Nia DaCosta's remake/sequel of Candyman becoming #1 at the box office. But Little Movie Perp is arguing that we need more black female directors. My argument is that we need more good directors, and that a director's race and gender is irrelevant.
That is part of the diversity we're talking about, yes, about their perspectives.
My point is, shouldn't it go to the best director?
He's arguing that black women are entitled or owed a job as a director since there were so few black female directors in the past to simply check a box and fill a quota. My argument is that nobody is owed a directing job. Nobody is owed the #1 spot at the box office. That one should earn a directing job through merit and not through filling a quota or fixing the past. That one's skin color or gender is not a qualification to be a director.
For the opportunity.
Black women already had the opportunity to become directors for decades. How can you give someone an opportunity when that opportunity had already existed for decades? From the research I did, the first black woman director was a woman named Tracy Solders, who directed a movie called A Woman's Error back in 1922. So, black women have been directing movies for over 100 years. So the idea that black women don't have opportunities to be directors is absurd. Who is preventing black women from becoming directors?
Because once you give them the opportunity, you'll see the masses.
The opportunity should go to the best person, not to
who is the best person.
Certain
who is
race.
The best person?
The best director.
When I say best director, I mean the most qualified. And race and gender are not qualifications for the best director. For example, if I'm producing a movie about MLK, I'm going to hire a director who knows the most about MLK. And that might be a white director. Just because a director is black doesn't mean they know anything about MLK. I would go for a movie about a white historical figure like George Washington. Just because a director is white doesn't mean they would know anything about George Washington. Heck, the best director for a George Washington movie might be an Asian woman. The point is, race and gender isn't a qualification for a director. Let's hear what Little Movie Perp and his friend RJ has to say on the subject.
Do you think a white director could direct a movie about the black experience?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, RJ used the phrase black experience. Now, frankly, this is a very racist phrase because it assumes that all black people have all the same life experiences, and that's simply not true. One black person's life experience can be drastically different from another. Unfortunately, Hollywood uses very racist and discriminatory hiring practices and hires directors like Nia DaCosta simply because she's black, and Hollywood thinks that all black people are all the same and have the same black experience. When Hollywood says that they want directors who have the black experience, what they usually mean is they want directors who experienced racism. Now, again, this is extremely racist since black people are not the only race that have experienced racism. Latinos, Asians, and yes, even white people have experienced racism. Now let's hear from Ed from Pop Counterculture. He reviewed The Marvels in another Nia DaCosta film, Candyman, and he compared the two. He starts with Candyman. Here's a few interesting things he had to say about it.
While Bernard Rose's exploration and representation of the black experience is very sensitive, one of the things that Nia DaCosta does with Candyman is to take the themes and the ideas and the legend and really bring her perspective as an African-American woman to say something much bolder than Bernard Rose ever could because, let's face it, because he is ultimately a white British guy.
Okay, that was extremely racist. Ed just said that the original director of Candyman, Bernard Rose, isn't as qualified as Nia DaCosta simply because of his skin color. Also, he just admitted that Nia DaCosta was hired simply because of her skin color, which it makes her a diversity hire, which is a very racist hiring practice in Hollywood. Candyman was created by Clive Barker, another white British man. He also directed movies in the past. So Ed is also saying that Candyman's own creator is less qualified to direct a movie about him than Nia DaCosta, simply because of skin color. Let me say that again. Ed thinks that the man who created Candyman, the man of whom Nia DaCosta's job of director would not exist, is less qualified to direct a movie about his own creation than Nia DaCosta, simply because she is black and he is white. Amazing. What else did Ed have to say?
It is about a white woman intruding into black spaces.
That is another racist comment from Ed. First, what is a black space exactly? Would he say that there is a such thing as a white space? And if there are white spaces, would he say that a black person who came into a white space is intruding, as he claimed this white woman did? A Latino man like himself went into a majority white neighborhood. Would Ed say that he was intruding in white spaces? Would Ed say that illegal immigrants are intruding into American spaces? I'm very curious about that. Let's hear what Ed said about the Marvels.
Aside of that, yeah, no, this movie was a rough one.
Careful, Ed. The director that you love so much, Nia DaCosta, has said essentially that anyone who doesn't like the Marvels, like you, is just a racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic bigot. Big credit, though. He's clearly not a Marvel shill who will defend Marvel movies regardless of how crappy they are. What else did he have to say about Nia DaCosta's The Marvels?
And she shows that she's capable of crafting this complex, multi-layered narrative that takes place over time, over generations, and she brings it all together beautifully to have this really impactful ending and a really powerful message to it. And meanwhile, the Marvels is just like a collection of scenes that play together in order, but otherwise have no rhythm to it, no thematic connection to each other. It's just like, and then this happened, and then that happened. Oh, and then this happened. And none of it adds up to anything more than just like a relatively forgettable action movie.
So essentially, Ed is saying that the Marvels is not woke enough. He doesn't want to see minorities being treated equally. He'd much rather see minorities suffering from racism and being treated poorly by evil white people.
Another great thing about Candyman is what Nia DaCosta brings to it as an African American woman. In the Marvels, we have a Pakistani, a black, and a white woman. And there's nothing that is explored about their experiences as either women or as women of those individual races. I mean, don't get me wrong, Miss Marvel, we get to see her family being multi-generational and being very loving, but there's nothing challenging about that. It's just nice. It's nice to see. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't say anything. Whereas in Candyman, I feel like she says a lot, not just about being an African American, but a lot about social mobility and coming from a place of poverty or of struggle and then finding yourself in the upper middle class or in the upper class of society.
You see, to people on the left like Ed, when he sees minorities in movies being treated well by white people and not suffering from racism, it destroys his worldview, and it shows that generally speaking, America is not a racist country, and minorities aren't perpetual victims of racism, and he can't stand that. What else did he have to say about the director, Nia DaCosta?
So even if there were themes in this movie, none of them are themes that are unique to her and her experience. And worst of all, there's nothing about her unique personality as a person that comes across any of this movie.
So Ed is even admitting that Nia DaCosta was a diversity hire. She was hired because she's a black woman. But her so-called experiences as a black woman, which in Ed's mind means that she must have suffered some kind of sexism or racism, isn't even in this movie, proving that her so-called qualifications of her black experience wasn't even utilized. So Marvel hired her for no reason whatsoever. Anyone could have directed this movie, proving my point that hiring directors simply for their race is pointless, discriminatory, and racist. So to sum up, people on the left seem to think that even though an actor's look is part of their qualifications, their race, which is part of what they look like, doesn't seem to matter. But a director whose looks are irrelevant, their race is somehow extremely important, which is very strange to me. I'm the opposite. In my opinion, a director's race is irrelevant. But an actor's race is important since they should be the race of the character that comes from the source material. However, if an actor is hired because their race checks a box or fills a quota, that makes them a diversity hire, and it's discriminatory, racist, and morally wrong. That's about it for this video. I'm Alpha Eagle. God bless you for watching. God bless America, and I pray that the left wing in Hollywood stop it with the racist hiring policy of diversity hires.